Yay! It's Monday. It's bright out. Everybody should be feeling ultimately energized with the extra hour of sleep on Saturday night and coming into the Nudelberg Daily Huddle fully charged and ready to kick this week off in a great way. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Shay.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Good morning, everyone.
Living the absolute dream, I have to tell you. That the sunlight makes a huge difference for me, right? Like waking up early is waking up early, but when it's not pitch black out at 6 o'clock still, and like after the workout and when I'm walking Lou, for it to be like bright out, I'm like on 1,000. Like the past hour, I felt like I've gotten so much more done than I normally do just because of the sunlight.
Yeah. But I do miss the longer day at the end of the day too. I wish I could have it both ways, but I can't. So
it's funny. Yeah. I think everybody has their preference on where they'd prefer the light at, to me, I'm done by the end of the day anyway. Like I'm ready to close shop at 6 o'clock. And so it being dark when we eat dinner or when I grill or whatever, it's like, what's the difference?
Right.
I'd much rather have this time in the morning because to me it sets the tone for the day, so I love it.
We'll see if they're going to make it official that it'll stay that way.
Okay, well, so we voted on it last year, right? And I'm assuming that this is the last year that we actually changed the clocks because I do
it's stuck in the. I can't remember if it's the House or Senate, but it hasn't passed.
So it hasn't passed all. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I think it went through the House.
Politics.
Yeah.
Unreal. Well, how was your weekend, Lori?
By the way, I never talk politics, but I do want to say everybody should get out and vote tomorrow.
Correct. We're 24 hours away.
Either way.
Whether you have to go to the polls to vote, or whether you have a mail-in ballot that you should have already sent in, and if you did not send it in, it's still okay. You can just drop it off at one of the drop-off locations. So got to make sure that you are voting on Tuesday. But how was your weekend? What'd you do this weekend? I know Patrick had a special weekend.
Yep. This weekend was a big race for the Special Olympics. So he was out there. My niece was in town. And so we spent a couple of nights, much to my dismay, at the casino. And as I stood there, here's what I was thinking, right? They're pressing a damn button. I'm like, there's no strategy to this. There's nothing to this, right? It is pure luck. And by the way, the house always wins, so they lost.
So you're speaking slots, and Jim Barrett, who is in the audience, Jim would tell you that there is strategy to it and that there is a way to play because he has been playing for a long, long time and loves himself some of those slots. But speaking of big races,
while they did that, I hit the blackjack table. There's a little more strategy.
Speaking of big races, there was a big race this weekend in New York. It was the New York City Marathon, and Steve Nudelberg himself was there with Helen to see Helen's eldest son run in the race. Shay, do we have any pictures from my dad of that?
I am saving those for the Nudelberg because I'm sure he would want to share it tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So I don't get to actually show any. Well, congratulations, because the completion of a marathon is just something absolutely unbelievable, and had the opportunity to talk to him about it and what it was like. And he said the city was lit up and it was a great experience. So that was super cool. Jake Nudelberg was in Chicago this weekend. Got to spend the time in the Windy City. He got some unbelievable weather and got to enjoy not frigid weather, but also got to see a Dolphins victory. And then we spent the weekend doing family photos. Saturday was a big family photo shoot for us out in Del Rey in the park. And I got to tell you, the kid just knows how to turn it on. Jules is absolutely fantastic. He did not cry one time, sat up, posed for the camera, did his song and dance, and it was really awesome. So great weekend, great stuff going on. There's some crazy sports things that happened.
Wait.
For all of
What about Shay? Shay, I heard you're going to be swimming in a couple of days.
That'd be nice. Yes. Barring any storm coming over here.
Shay's pool is up and running, right? So the trees that he dug out with his bare hands are officially gone. The pool is in place. It is full, and he will be swimming in the next few days. But crazy sports weekend as well. Bama goes down again to LSU, which was a shocker. But I think what everybody wants to talk about are those Florida State Seminoles.
I don't think so, but
who absolutely came down to South Florida and planted their flag. And it's great to see the program just dominate from start to finish in that game. It was awesome for me because 10 years prior, show that picture. Exactly 10 years ago, that was Jake and Zach Stein and myself sitting at Shula's before we boarded the bus to go play Miami at night which was Pro Player at that time, is now Hard Rock. But that was the second year in a row that we had beaten Miami, and that was what sent us to a ACC championship. So cool to see the program coming around again. History repeats itself. We have got to wake up. We've got great content to talk about.
My team struggles this year, so when they absolutely dominate Clemson, so go Irish.
There you go Notre Dame. Clemson goes down. It was a crazy weekend of college football.
It was a crazy weekend.
Let's get to some wake up music. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about content and posting.
Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more about to thinking, time of thinking ahead. Come on.
So part of what we teach, part of what we preach, and part of what we help everybody do and talk about on the show is content. What we're doing right now is content. We're putting a show out there for everybody to be a part of. I put a post out there on Saturday because this last Tuesday, a week ago, was the NFL trade deadline. And there were lots of major trades that happened, but I always look at it as teaching life through sport. And what most people don't think about is there was a family, right? There was a human being and their family that got completely blindsided and got uprooted, and their life got sent on a completely different trajectory than what it was when they woke up that morning. So I kind of talked about that in the post, but I used a picture of when I was at the University of Cincinnati and Coach Tuberville. And as everybody is able to, and as I appreciate when people do, I received some feedback and a message that was like, hey, you might want to take down that picture of you and Tommy Tuberville. And Lori, would you have any idea on why they would be concerned about me having a picture with Tommy Tuberville?
Not a clue.
Not a clue. So Tommy became a senator for the university or for the state of Alabama. And he has been quoted recently with some interesting remarks. Some people may call them racist. Some people may agree with them. Whatever your views are on them. He was a hot button topic a couple weeks ago for what he said in a rally in Nevada. Now, they were concerned that I may be associated with Tommy's comments, or that somebody may look at me and say, oh, you're with Tommy in this picture, that must mean you support them, and dismiss me without conversation. And so this led to a great dialogue with me and this person back and forth, because I wanted her to understand, or I wanted that person to understand, that I don't care if somebody is willing to dismiss me without conversation. My point in posting content is to start a conversation. The whole thing I'm looking to do is have it create enough intrigue in somebody to where, you know what? Maybe I'd like to talk to Mark about that. That's my entire goal. So I'm not concerned with somebody who may look at it and go, oh, well, I don't want to talk to Mark because he's in this picture with this person, or whatever their opinion may be. I would hope that they'd say, hey, I've got a question about you being in a picture with this person. So I'd love to get your take on it, Lori, because you are out there, you are the CEO of a nonprofit, and you consistently put out great content.
You know, I think, well, first of all, you said you hope they would want to have a conversation. Think about the world we're living in right now.
Yep.
There's no agreeing to disagree anymore.
Right.
People make a judgment based on whatever it is that, they feel like making the judgment on. So I think, a couple of things. One, the expectation is people are going to judge. That's just the world we live in today. And they're going to have something to say about it before they even hear your opinion. And number two, I do want to say that there is something about, right, who you associate yourself with, right?
1000%.
Does sometimes dictate or give people a clue as to your brand, right? But I'm not sure in this case that's what this was.
Sure.
So you could have just said in the post, at some point, when somebody had a conversation, I don't necessarily agree with him, but this was a different time, right? Or something like that. But we're living in a world of judgment.
So, but that to me is, as you choose to put things out there, as you decide what you're going to share, what picture it's going to be, to me, I live a pretty open life and there's not much that I'm not willing to share, but it's all about starting a conversation. It's all about what can I get? How can I get someone to engage in a dialogue with me? Because I'm not in it for the likes. I'm not in it for the attention or to make somebody think something. I'm not trying to persuade or drive my own narrative or opinion. I'm sharing what I think and what I feel. The reality is that regardless of who the picture is with or what I may say, there's an opportunity that somebody's not going to like it. There's an opportunity that somebody's going to go, oh, well, that's not right. But again, to me, my hope is that they would go, let's talk about that. Or I'd love to go talk more about that. As Paula Bird says, spark the curiosity of it to have a dialogue. So as you decide what you're going to share, is there a filter that you put things through? Do you only work in certain kinds of buckets? And I'd be happy to hear from other people in the audience about how they choose what to share.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think I just stay away from political stuff, really, because I just don't. In my position with JA, I need to be careful about that. And it just gets nasty, and it's not. So that's really about the only thing I won't talk about. But other than that, I love a good debate.
I love it, right? Love a good debate. Love a good conversation, which as I look at the Huddle audience, there's a lot of leaders in this group, right? Whether they're leaders of organizations or leaders of themselves, I think that's what makes the Huddle so great, is that it's constant engagement in a conversation. It's constant debate. It's constant back and forth of looking at things in different perspectives. So to carry on the conversation, the morning motivational music is exactly that. Let's take it away, Shay.
I don't know what to do. Oh, brother, I can't believe it's true. I'm so scared about the future, and I wanna talk to you. Oh, I wanna talk to you.
great Coldplay song, one of my all-time favorite Coldplay songs. The title of that is Talk, right? So we're staying on this topic of conversation, which is point of content for me to drive a conversation, have somebody create a conversation and talk. Harvard Business Review put out this article about the 5 things to ask direct reports, or the 5 questions to ask direct reports. But before we get into what they suggested, Lori, how do you craft your agendas with the people that you're going to be meeting with, the people within the organization that are your direct reports? How do you balance the, hey, I need to be invested in them as a human and who they are outside of JA, and I also need to be invested in them accomplishing their role within the organization?
Yeah. So first of all, I meet with every single person on our staff twice a year. Doesn't matter whether my direct reports, I meet with, every other week, or every other week. So when I meet with the people that are not my direct reports, I'm not there to ask them about how they're doing, hitting their goals. And it is really about them. All right, tell me something I don't know about you. What did you do this weekend? And then it goes from there. I also ask, how are we doing? What are we doing well here? Why would you tell other people about us, right? What is it you love about being at JA? Or what can we do better, right? And so those are some of the questions. I want to get to that part of it. What resources do you need that would make your job easier? It was interesting because when I read the article, a lot of what I was asking is in there. And I actually passed it on to the people on my team who have direct reports, because they should be asking those questions too. You got to get to know someone. You got to build that trust and that rapport if you're going to have that great relationship about work. I think I've always been like that.
I agree with you 1,000%. I think, when I've done my leadership talks and my leadership presentations to groups, I always talk about trust, right? And when we talk about what it is, trust is not a certificate that you get in the beginning of the relationship and you're like, okay, I trust you. Here it is. And now this trust lasts forever. Trust is a feeling. It's not something that's tangible. It's not something that you can see. It's not something that you can hang on your wall. It's a feeling. And just like all feelings come and go. So how do you consistently feed that trust with the people that you're responsible for? Has to be through the questions that you ask them, has to be through the conversations that you have with them. And I love that the first one that the Harvard Business Review started with was, how do you want to grow within this organization, right? I've done work with organizations in taking over new areas or creating new leaders. And that to me is one of the most important things that a new leader can do with their team, is to just get to know somebody, to say, hey, what's your experience been with this organization up to this point? And where do you see yourself going? What do you want to do? Because if you have somebody who is on a track in one direction and their vision for themselves is to be in another one, you're already set up for failure before you even got started.
You know what I think is so interesting? When I do these first of all, when I schedule, right, when Stephanie schedules all the one-on-ones with people, the newer people are like, oh my God, what did I do? Right? The CEO wants to meet with me. Right. And then she said, no, it's okay. She just likes to do this a couple of times a year. They right away want to talk about work.
Right.
Oh, I'm working on this and I'm working. And I'm like, no. That's not what this is for. Right. Yep. You're going to do that with your direct support. You got your scorecards. You guys do that. That's not my thing. Yeah. So that number one shocks them, because they think I want to know how they're doing right in their jobs. Yep. And so when you start to ask those questions, so I just word number one a little different. I'll just say, what's your ultimate goal? Mm-hmm. Right? What's your dream? Where do you want to be someday? And it's really interesting to me. They have a tough time sometimes answering that question. But
why do you think that is?
Listen, when I look back, and I was in my 20s or early 30s, look, I knew I wanted to be a boss. I was a leader. I like leading, right? Sure. But if you would have told me, I would have never said I want to be the CEO of a nonprofit or
Sure.
even an organization. I work for a $2 billion advertising agency. The chances of me becoming CEO were slim to none. Okay. So being CEO was not my goal. My goal was always around leading teams. So I knew that. But if you ask me a specific position, I don't know that I would have known that back then either.
It's funny. So I think, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, they all made their way, right? It was they decided what they were going to do, and then they decided how they wanted to do things. They decided the things they liked, and then figure out a way to build a business around that. That kind of concept for me, when I realized that I was passionate about coaching and that was something that I wanted to do, that was a very different track than I had been on, to come home, work in the family business, work with my dad at that time. And so being encouraged to say, hey, if that's what you figured out you like to do, go try to build a career around that. That's a very different conversation, I think, than most other young people get. Most other young people are trying to get the degree that then fits into the job, and then they try to get into an organization, and everything is being dictated for them about what they should be doing and where they should be going. So by the time you get to sit down with the CEO and you go, where do you want to go? You're like, well, isn't that your job to tell me? Aren't you supposed to be telling me where I'm supposed to be going inside of this organization? Because ultimately, that was the thing that got me out of the first stop that I was in post-coaching, because I sat down with the CEO and I thought it was going to be a conversation about like, hey, you've been here for 10 months. This has been really great. Where do you see yourself going? But it was the opposite. He was telling me where I was supposed to be going. And then when I let him know what I wanted to be doing, he was like, yeah, but don't discount all of these great things that you could be doing. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You're not in this for me. Like, you're in this for you and what you think I can do for you. And that was the separation of that entire relationship.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's interesting what I see though, as the newer people, when they come in and I do those one-on-ones, it's new, right? Our relationship is new. Then when I do those with the people who have been there a while, they're much clearer about where they want to go, right? And we talk specifically about that. I think the other thing that was not on this list was questions work both ways. Right.
Amen.
So this talked about the questions you ask your direct report, but what about the questions they should ask you? Right. So maybe there's an HBR article on what they should ask us someday. And maybe that's another topic. But I always say to them, what do you want to know about me? Right. I share anyway. I'm open about myself. I'm laughing because Greg Goldstein said he learned something new about me, that I was in advertising. Yeah. I didn't just pop out of the egg and end up in nonprofit. Okay. I run things like a business because I came from business.
Sure.
But so I share about myself. So a lot of times, right, people can follow up on that. I give them a chance to ask those questions of me. Maybe it is okay for them to say, where do you see me going? What do you see as my strengths? Gosh, I would have loved to have been able to ask that question to someone.
Right? Like, and that puts so much responsibility back on the leader to have a plan, to know, to have evaluated that person, to have an idea on what their skill sets are, because that's the ultimate role that you have, is to create the alignment for the organization. I don't care if you've got a team of 3 at the very bottom of the org chart, or you're the CEO that's responsible for the entire organization. Everybody's got to be aligned with who they are and what their goal is. So that kind of ties into that question of, do you feel a sense of purpose in your job? Just so we're going to end it here, but so everybody gets them. Do you feel a sense of purpose in your job? What do you need from me to do your best work? What are we currently not doing as a company that you feel we should do? Are you able to do your best work every day? All really deep questions to be asking individuals in order to create the alignment, raise the level of execution, and ultimately create the right culture that you want within the place that you work.
Absolutely. Amen.
Great stuff. Thank you, Lori. Great start to the week. Awesome stuff. It's bright. It's shiny. Do not forget that on Thursday,
Yep.
Jen Lederer is kicking off her communication boot camp. Super excited for that. Super excited for everything going on. So if you were a part of last week's and you're not sure about it, jenlederer.com/OTB. That's where you can sign up. Have a fantastic start to the week. Let's get down to business.
Woo. Thank you.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business.